G'day Bomber fans, what a game that was. Something about ANZAC Day just brings out the best in both these teams. It was an absolute treat for neutrals and us, to be honest. It was just a great game to watch. A draw always is a good game to watch, but that was just incredible footy. We don't get the win, but really a draw is as good as a win for us with the percentage that we currently hold, so we can't be too upset by that result. We took it right up to one of the better teams in the comp. The boys should be proud of that effort. There's plenty to like about this game, a few negatives as well, as always. Make sure you get your votes in down below. 3-2-1 Bomber players only, you know the drill, and of course also the role player of the match, the guy you thought did well but didn't get love from the commentators or the community. Let's get on to the review. Alrighty, so match recap. It started off really well. We were fantastic. That's probably the best that we've looked in years, I would say, that first half of the quarter. We had them rattled early. We kicked the first 4 goals before they could even manage 5 disposals. We had all the play, but of course the Pies were always going to respond and steady the ship, and they did. They managed to drag a few back their way, bringing the margin under 4 goals at quarter time. The second term was worrying. It was a bit of deja vu from with that Port Adelaide game. The Pies had clearly woken up and started to manage their pressure better, bringing the same heat that we had in the first. They kicked 4 goals to our 1. It should have probably been more, but they were a bit wasteful in front of the sticks. And actually, it looked like they were going to run away and go on a real streak of scoring until that late Sam Draper goal helped stem the flow. After halftime, the game really evened out. It was a brutal affair, really tough, really hard to get meaningful possessions in good areas. The pressure was high and the scoring was low. We went in to the final quarter trailing by a point after 3 late Collingwood goals. That last quarter was just awesome. It was a thrill the whole way through. 3 goals each, only a couple of points. The ball was pinging around everywhere. It looked like they had it early, then it looked like we brought it back our way. Momentum was swinging. My check kept us in it with some horrid set shot kicking, luckily. And then the ball fell to Langford, who I guess the set shot kicking was contagious because he had a chance to all but win the game with just a minute left, and he missed one that he would kick 99 times out of 100. Then you had that Elliott drop mark. Everything was happening. It was a crazy, frantic last quarter. Both teams should have won that game, realistically, but neither did. It ended a draw, our first in 4 years or so. So how did the game play out? How did this stalemate come to be? Well, we had the upper hand through the midfield battle, which was always going to be an important one, getting that early territory, and we genuinely destroyed them through the guts. It was a no contest. We killed them. I actually think we exposed them a little bit. They should be a tad worried by that performance. 40 clearances to 23, 19 centre clearances to 8, and we aren't even full strength in the midfield. That is brutal. It was a genuine demolition job through the guts. Stringer moved there in their lots, and he was massive when he was around the ball. Something new for the year as well. He's played mostly forward. Merritt was huge. Parrish was back to his best, I thought. We finally saw him play good footy in 2024, and that's what happens when he does. The only issue was the fact we probably didn't capitalise on our midfield dominance enough. Some entries were a bit poor and to their defenders' advantage, but that territory balance was well and truly in our favour solely through the midfield matchups, which we well and truly won. It was really pleasing because it's not a bad midfield in the slightest that Collingwood won, but we made them look like a bad midfield. Collingwood's greatest asset is their pressure, and it was a big factor in their early resurgence in the game when they were 5 goals down, and just their resurgence as a whole this year. It's what makes them such a great team when they're up and about, and they were nuts. That tackle count of 50 to 67 does not tell the full story. They were really hot. They made us work so hard in close and personal. It was tough to watch at times because we just looked overwhelmed every now and then, and that's nothing against us. It's all on them and their brilliant heat around the pill. I look at the tackles inside 50. We had 2, they had 14, and I think that tells you a big story of where the pressure came and how impactful it was when it did come. They found it a lot easier to rebound. Those repeat entries that we saw last week weren't as prominent. We had half the amount of forward half intercepts than we had on Friday against the Crows. I don't think it was a big issue though. Obviously we could have won and been talking about something else, but their pressure and how much it got the better of us at times was definitely a big factor in the game being so close. Typically when you look at Cole Langford and Jamie Elliott, you see 2 players with genuine ice in their veins. They are clutch. They're great in tight games, in tight moments, and both of them kind of proved how important moments are in footy, whether it's a regulation set shot or a sliding chest mark. And I'm only highlighting these 2 to prove that it happens to everyone, but a big reason the game ended the way it did was it comes from the fact neither team took their chances when it mattered most. You had Brody Mychek. He could have put them up by 2 or 3 goals in that last quarter, but he had 2 shocking set shots, both out on the full. Even if one of them goes through for a point, things may have been different. Jake Stringer in that second quarter, he could have put us up by almost 30 points from directly in front, but he missed. And I won't highlight anyone else, but the fact both teams kicked 12 goals, 13, lots of missed set shots. Even if one team took those opportunities, the 50-50 chances, it could have changed the game. But luckily, or unluckily, depends on how you look at it, neither did. I said in my preview that we can't have lapses in games and allow teams to gain serious momentum, especially a team like Collingwood, and unfortunately that second quarter proved to be fatal for our chances of a strong 4-quarter performance. They actually trailed by 26 points points early in the game. It should have been more. We had a strong lead, and then we allowed them to pile on 5 straight goals. That just isn't good enough. Even if we stop 1 or 2 of those goals, it's a big difference. A 1-goal lead at halftime compared to a 2 or 3 is huge, especially when you look at the final margin. I think it's all well and good to really hone in on those last 5 to 10 minutes as the deciding game-changing periods of play, but I think that Collingwood's second quarter dominance threw away our chances of really putting them on the back foot, and I hope the team has a good long look at that in the match review this week. But in saying that, I was actually really proud of the effort shown to stop the flow when we did, and also regain momentum ourselves after they had that really big drive, those 5 goals in a row. I think we were all a bit worried late in that second quarter. It was looking like the Pies were the only team out there capable of winning for a bit. At least that's how it felt to me and those I was watching with. But for us to not only respond late in that second quarter to wrestle back momentum, but to also come out ready to fight in the third, I thought that showed real maturity, and it's not something we have seen much in recent years from Essendon, so it's good to see the boys respond. I think since that Port game, to be honest, this year, we've shown real grit and edge about our playstyle, but also in important moments. We stood up when we were questioned against the Crows, against the Dogs, and now here against the Pies. It's just a shame we couldn't get the win, because I feel like many would be talking about this aspect of the game if we did. I think we all got proven a little bit wrong by the coaches. I said this was a game that could be won and lost at selection, and I didn't outrightly say being too tall was a negative, but I was worried about the effects it could have. But you saw early just how much it played into our favour forward of the ball, and I will talk about the negatives in a second, but I think the contested marking numbers were well and truly in our favour in that first half when we had them on the ropes. It looked really tough for them to defend, not just inside 50 but around the ground. It did settle a bit later in the game, but I thought for the most part our height was a non-issue. I do think we were poor on ground level, but that can easily be attributed to the underperforming smalls. I don't think the extra tall was the reason why we weren't as dynamic and hot around the ball inside 50, but it should also be said Collingwood's ability to defend our entries in that second half was pretty annoying. Some entries were poor. That's something we've been become accustomed to as Essendon fans, but Darcy Moore I thought was excellent. Jeremy Howe was spoiling everything. Their back six held up really well against our tall forward line. If even one of them was having a down day, I think we get the win, but unfortunately for us, none of them were poor. It was a really good defensive performance from Collingwood. There are some players that I thought underperformed, which doesn't really matter in a draw because Collingwood had some of their own, but I think Davey probably comes out for Guelphy next week. I thought he had some superb moments, but didn't apply that forward pressure consistently enough to do harm. Collingwood found it a bit easy to exit their defensive 50 at times, and it's made all the more worse because I thought Gresham was having a slower day than he usually does pressure-wise. Mackay was uncharacteristically poor, I thought. A few of our defenders were at times, actually, the taller ones. I think Nick Hine probably comes out of the team this week as well. He looked a bit off when he came on as the sub. Jake Kelly was frustrating, but in weeks prior to this has been important in shutting down dangerous forwards, so it's tough to say with him. Laverty's clearly battling a bit, so we have a few players that are not at their best right now. We're starting to miss Ridley and Reed. Overall, though, I thought the team was pretty strong across the board. I should also mention the injury worries to come out of this game. Nothing too drastic, I think. Harry Jones was subbed out after that big knock to the nose. It looked pretty gnarly. Cox suffered a knock late, but I'm not sure how bad it was. We'll see, I guess. The good thing is we have a pretty decent wait until our next game. We go from Thursday evening to Saturday night against the Eagles, which is really good because we could welcome back Dylan Shiel and Matt Guelphy, who are surely fit by then. All in all, it's a hard game to judge. Draws always are. It's hard to be happy when you don't walk home with a win, but considering where we are in our percentage going into the game, we wouldn't have moved up any more than we did with the 4 points. That draw kind of makes percentage irrelevant now for the rest of the season, so we should be looking at it as a little advantage considering we are well ahead of where we thought we would be by this stage. Realistically, 4 wins after round 7, not many thought that would be the case, but 5 wins, that would be weird to even predict going into the season. We've been favourites in 1 game, and now comes a stretch where we have genuine winnable matches that we shouldn't drop. I think there are more positives than negatives to take out of this match. I'm happy. Yes, we probably should have won the game, and we probably should be regretful and I guess weary for the future, but all in all, a draw is a good result for us. It's not a win, and we shouldn't view it as one, but it's further from a loss than from a win in my eyes. Great game, great skeptical. Let's get on to the votes. 1 vote to Darcy Parish, who I thought was really underrated in the guts. It's his best game of the year. I tried to find a few midfielders to give love to because of how well we played in there, and I thought after Merritt, Parish was our most important. He was back to his best, which is great. I think he only got the 1 vote for the ANZAC medal. 2 votes to the ANZAC medalist, though, Zach Merritt, who was superb, as he always is. But 3 votes, Andy McGrath. What a fantastic game. That second half in particular was nuts. He was as good as I've ever seen him in that second half. He had the most intercepts on the ground, I think, but he was also so clean with the ball. He had some drilling grass cutters that I'd never really seen from him before. He's proving the haters wrong. He's in all-Australian form right now, to be honest. If Brad Johnson has Nick Martin in his team, I think Andy McGrath should be there instead. And my role player, Jake Stringer, I feel like his performance is underrated. 19 touches, a goal. It doesn't look great on paper. He had a few sitters as well, but he was massive in the guts. 8 clearances, 15 contested possessions. He deserves some love because he was huge, especially in centre bounces. Really took it to the Pies. Some players unlucky to miss out on votes. Nick Martin was terrific in that last quarter. Cole Langford was also great. He got us back in the game. But I just thought Parrish was more consistent throughout the game than those two. Caldwell and Durham were really good. I thought Caldwell in particular was really strong. And Dyson Heppel, what a season he's having. He was rock solid back there. That's about it though. Leave your votes in the comments down below along with your role player of the match as always. That is that. What a game. Hard to look back and smile on it seeing as we didn't get the 4 points, but I feel like that is just footy at its purest and at its best. It's two good teams fighting it out in front of a massive crowd with some incredible moments. That Elliott mark of the year, that Stringer set shot. There was just so much to love about the game as a neutral. We move on to a game against West Coast in Perth next Saturday, one we really should be winning. Get your votes in, like if you enjoyed, subscribe to join the community, and go Bombers.